If you ask me to name the accordionist that I went, oh, this is unbelievable, it's Richard Galliano, that I heard playing and I went, this is unbelievable, also because maybe because he had the jazz Bill Evans love as well, and he was just such a virtuoso, so that was really the first person that I heard play the accordion where I went, okay, this is, I want to hear all his records and I remember his name, so because it's so amazing what he does. And I met him, I guess, in Orvieto. I had a group with Eero Rantala. It was called the Tango Kings, and we played songs that he that he had written, and it was a good band with Mark Feldman and Mike Richmond and Adam Rogers. And the promoters of the festival said, hey, you want Richard can sit in with you? And I was like, oh my God, yeah. And then, I don't know if you know, he asked me to do 2 tours with him at some point after that. First group was with Scott Colley and I guess Clarence Penn. And that was amazing also in a number of ways. Not the least of which, when I first started playing with Richard, he looked at me and I had my bigger accordion. It was tuned to 440. And Richard looked at me and he goes, 440? And I went, yeah. He goes, He solved the problem by asking Victoria to bring me an accordion, which they did somewhere in Italy. And I picked it up that night for the gig, and that was the last time I played the other accordion. It was like 100 times better than any instrument that I ever had. And the main thing that it did have, the 2 high lines of the Stradella bass could now be high notes, and I could play single lines, and then I can do voicings with 2 and 3 notes with my left hand, and that completely changed the way I played. And also the fact that now I had 2 notes, like I had a D over here and a D here, and they sounded slightly different in the way that a tenor player goes, whatever that is. Right. False fingerings, and it sounded like a false fingering to me, And when I did that the first time for Mike Brecker, he goes, how you doing that? It was like, that's tenor stuff. How do you do that on the accordion? Mike Brecker, large ensemble. So Mike went, hey, Gil, we can do this thing. What do you think? Should it be brass? And I said, no, it should be strings, woodwinds, and brass. And he went, oh, colors. It was a great ensemble. It was very agile, and the strings could sound very big if you voiced it in a good way, and I could add the woodwinds in, and it really sounded good. And after that point, Mike came back and he started writing music for that sound of instruments. So that's how it started. And then we just increased it to a string quartet, and we added in the missing French horn that we had, and that was it, And Mike had started to write, and I think the first thing that he wrote was Broadband, that song that starts with do 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 do, the bass clarinet line. Everything else that Mike had was like piano, bass, and he played saxophone in the demo. So it was bass clarinet and then a quartet with Mike. So I had to orchestrate from there, and very rarely would the instruments be what I eventually chose. You know, if he had like a flute sound, it might be like too low. He just used a flute sound low, and I'd say, well, that should probably be, you know, bass clarinet and clarinet, and I would throw things around and very often revoice things and clarify it, but they are all Mike's songs and conceptions of voicings, and 90% are his ideas of the, you know, how the lines move and the inner voices move. So it was kind of a glorified orchestration job, and I was trying to be very true to his songs, as I generally try to do as an arranger. But given that also, all the demos were about 2 minutes long. You know, it was the song. It started and it was the song, so I had to come up with an intro, a shape of it, and then all the improvising sections did not exist, so I had to create those developmental sections and backgrounds, and you know, so it was a lot of adding to, but there was a lot of amazing material to start with, you know, so it's very confusing. What did I do and what did Mike do? Well, he wrote the songs very clearly, and I orchestrated it and added to it as an arranger where I could.